Hi, I'm Sharika Dash.
And I'm Tanya Kennedy.
And you're watching I Survived It.
Hello, my name is Sharika Dash, and I'll be co-hosting with Miss
Tanya Kennedy, and we are here with Dr. Christopher Hall. Dr. Hall, introduce yourself. Say hi.
Good evening. Hello. I'm Dr. Christopher Hall, an author and also radio talk show host. I'm happy to be here.
We are happy to have you here. Today we're going to have you tell your story for I Survived It for our audience.
That's great. I'm excited.
All right, Mr. Hall, go ahead and let us hear your story.
Well, I'm Dr. Christopher Hall, MD, and I'm actually a native of Los Angeles, California. Grew up in Watts and also in Compton. But the reason why I'm here today is to tell you about a story and about a book I wrote about a year ago that details my life growing up in foster home and also in juvenile hall in the city of Los Angeles. I think this story is important because I think that we see a lot of young people today across America who are in similar situations, whether they're coming from an underserved background like myself, living in rural parts of the country, but we see a lot of kids that are struggling and they're coming from broken homes. And so that's the topic I want to address today. And it's detailed in this book here. It's called Ward of the Court. And so at about age 4, my mom, my dad, we lived in the projects called Nickerson Gardens. And a situation occurred where my dad was in a card game, actually. And he got and the other individual ended up dead. And so my dad was in prison for murder. And so that's kind of where the story begins. Myself and my 3 other siblings, we lived with my mom there in the project in Watts, in the Nickerson Garden projects. And my mom was young. This was, I guess, late 60s. And so probably like any typical mother at that time in that situation, and she was in her 20s, it probably wasn't easy for her. And she ended up being out a lot, partying, was eventually an alcoholic. And so, we were kind of left home as kids and young people and left for days sometime. And so that's how I ended up in this foster care system, which, at 4 years old, you don't really know what you're doing there. So I remember my first foster mother was Miss Hankins, and she was a really nice lady. I remember she basically, I remember being barefoot in the rain going to her foster home, and I remember calling her mom, or asking if I could call her mom. I said, "Hey, can I call you mom?" And she said, "Sure, you can." So that's kind of the first thing I remember about her. She was very strict, and she had a husband named Virgil. He was a gardener. He would take me places, and teach me about gardening. So this was my introduction to the world. These are my foster parents, and it kind of happens quick. When 4 years old, your family. The next thing you know, you're in a foster home. And so that's how my childhood went. From one foster home to another. Miss Hankins. Then there was a Miss Allen. There was, I believe, a Miss Johnson. But there was a succession of different homes. And so it's a very confusing time. You're kind of thinking as a kid, what's going on and where am I going? And, it's a big world here. It's a big city here, in Los Angeles. And so at about, I think probably, maybe 11 years old, I started running away, from these foster homes. Maybe out of anger, depression. Ended up in a little more trouble, as you got older. I ended up in going to juvenile hall, ended up in boys' home, and I was probably in every juvenile hall in LA, okay, South Central, Orange County, Riverside, every boys' home from San Fernando Valley all the way to, again, central Los Angeles. And so I wasn't what you would describe as a someone singing in a, I guess, Catholic chorus. I was a bad kid, okay? I fought a lot, and we used to steal stuff. We stole motorcycles. We would go into the stores and steal like candy and stuff from the stores. I mean, literally walk out the store with your jacket just full of candies and toys, and the security guard is trying to, they're stopping, like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you from? We wouldn't tell them anything. And so it was a situation where I eventually, like I said, ended up in the juvenile hall, and at some point ended up in the boys' home. Like once you get a certain age, they put you in boys' home. You're no longer in juvenile hall, or you're no longer in like foster home. They put you in a boys' home. So again, when you're in that situation, and when you're in juvenile hall, you encounter other boys who have done things sometimes worse. Whether they're in gangs or in crimes, and of course, you have to protect yourself. Fighting. So I was a bad kid. I fight a lot, and you couldn't say much to me. You say the wrong thing, I just knock you right out. So that's kind of how things went, really. And I didn't focus on school early on. I wasn't a great student, and so I think it was probably when I was 14 years old. About that time, I was in this boys' home called Pacific Lodge Boys' Home, and then one of the social workers called me in, and she said, she goes, "I've looked at your grades here. You're not doing that great." She said, "You don't seem like a dumb kid." She said, "I don't know why you're doing this," but she said, "The path you're on right now, you're definitely not gonna get to any college here in the state of California, and exactly where your life's gonna lead, who knows?" And so, again, I was every so often I would see my other siblings, my sister. I had an older sister who would get us together during the holidays, Joyce. She used to get us together. And she went to, girls' home, foster home, but she was like older than us. Like Joyce was the oldest. Like when I was 4 years old, Joyce was probably 14 or 16. So as she got older, she would get us together on the holidays, and so we kind of saw each other. I'd see my brother Wayne. He was getting, again, being rebellious in the same situation as myself, and I understand why he was kind of in the foster home, boys' home, running away, fighting gangs. Eventually, he was older than me, so he was 17, they just put him in prison. And so that's kind of where he's been. I mean, he's been in and out of prison since he was 17, so this is probably, him, we're Wayne, probably 30 years. And so he has 1,300 years. He's locked up in California. He has been. He wrote a chapter in this book, and it's called Wayne's Word. And I wanted Wayne to write that chapter because Wayne ended up in a different situation than myself, okay? I'm a medical doctor. I've been a doctor a long time, ER physician, and so it's been a blessing. And the book describes how all that happened, how I ended up in medical school and those kind of things. But I wanted Wayne to talk about what happened to him, and so that young people can see that, hey, you got a choice in life. There's a couple ways you can go. If you look at my part of the book, I talk about eventually how my life changes at age 14. I just, social work, she talks to me. I say, hey, let me give this a shot, this school thing. Maybe she's right. I sit down, find a way to study, and it works. Okay, it works. My grades get better, and I start thinking, hey, I can do this. And I start focusing on school. Again, that's in junior high. I go to high school. I'm not the greatest high school student because I go to high school. I ditch a class. I'm obviously, flirting with girls, having fun. And so, because you're away from the boys' home, if you get to go to public school, they let some people go. A lot of boys at boys' home can't go because of behavioral problems. Sometimes maybe they academically have some issues. But most of the boys on boys' home, you're going to school on a boys' home. But I went to public school, and so but getting out there still, you kind of away from the boys' home, so you get in trouble. And so I got a lot of trouble with ditching class. My grades weren't that great. But eventually, like I said, I turned around. It was a little bit too late. I think it was like maybe in the 10th grade, 11th grade. My grades steadily improved, and so eventually, I ended up going to college. But Wayne didn't. He ended up in prison. And he talks about some very, very important things, in his chapter. And so I really just want to read a couple words from him, so he can actually speak to you from prison through my book. And his chapter is called, it's chapter 2 in the book, and it's called A Letter from Royce Wayne Timmons. Okay? And it starts here, it looks like on page 53. Let's see. Let me take that back. Not page 53. It starts here on page 38. And so what Wayne says, and I'm just going to summarize real quick. This is his word. He says, hello, people. He says, I'm housed here at the Richard T. Donovan prison. I was sentenced to 1,300 years with 2 life terms. Cruel, right? I must admit, I feel I deserve the time they gave me. It all started when I was working for this company, stacking bricks on pallet. I was getting paid $500 a week, and under the table, there was a young brother who had a spot like labor ready. Matter of fact, that's where he learned how to open up his business. So he paid us under the table because of tax reasons. The story starts off how I met the girl, and she knows who she is. But let's say her name is Betty. He goes on to talk about how he had these odd jobs, how he was trying to make ends meet, and how he ends up getting hooked on drugs, and how he becomes a pimp. And this is his life. Again, he eventually ended up, he was caught there in California. It was a police chase. He was on crack that day. The guy with him was killed by the police. They were chasing those two, and he was, went into prison for 1,300 years, and that's what he is. But Wayne told me when he was growing up, he said, all these books that you bring home, he said, I could do that too if I want to. He said, but I don't want to. He said that, you keep staying focused in your academics, and he said, one day you'll become something. So this is his summary of his chapter, what he says. He says, I'm writing this for my brother. I love him so much. He was very disappointed with me because I got myself in a situation that I can never get out of. Chris, I'm so sorry. I left you without a brother. I'm glad you gave me a chance to express myself. Thank you for just being my brother. You become a doctor, and I become a prisoner for life. I hope my words help someone better themselves. The streets are not the place to be. Schools will help you down a good path, being positive and true to yourself. Treat yourself, wife or woman, like a lady supposed to get treated. Because if you have a daughter now or in the future, you wouldn't want her mistreated. Be honest, period. If somebody slips and falls, help them pick them up. Thank you, Chris. So these are the words that I'm left with from my brother. He's not getting out. So, but read his chapter if you get a chance. So what happens with this story is, and everything's summarized in the book. I eventually my grades improved. I ended up applying to college. It's called the California State University in Chico up in Northern California, and I was lucky to be accepted there. And so, and to me that was a blessing. I had grown up in boys' homes since I was 4 years old, all up until I was 18. I had been in juvenile hall, foster home, almost in the same situation as my brother. And so once I got that opportunity to go to college, I said, man, look, this is my chance to better my life, try to make something of myself. And so I put my head in the books and I studied, and I would go to the library until they closed, and I would go after that to the donut shop and stay there till 2 in the morning until, because I was really kind of scared. I was kind of like, wow, I'm here out in the world by myself now. I don't have anybody. We didn't have a home. At that time, my mom had a stroke right then, and she was kind of dependent, living kind of pretty much in like a nursing home. And then my sister Joyce, she was still living in the projects, and we were out just on our own. We didn't have my dad had died. He passed away down when I was 14, and so I really wanted to try to make something myself, and I just stayed focused, and eventually, did well enough in school before I ended up going to dental school when I was 22. I finished college when I was 22, and I went to school up in Northwestern University in Chicago. And during that time period, I was in Chicago for about a year, but eventually decided, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about the body. I want to go to medical school. And so that's how this became about. I ended up, quitting dental school, and between dental school and medical school, I actually went to graduate school. So I got a master's degree and did that for a couple years, and then applied to medical school. And so I'm saying this to say that a person like myself, okay, who was not a great test taker, okay, in high school, and who didn't do that great in high school. I remember one class called Survival I took. I'm not sure what it was about in high school, but I remember I received an F in that class. But that just is to show you that I didn't focus. Not that I couldn't do the work, but I just didn't focus. And again, I took the SAT twice, okay? The first score was horrible, and I won't even tell you I can't remember what it was, but the second score improved, okay? And to say that, I'm saying that because you can take standardized tests and do better. Okay, when I applied to medical school and dental school, if you look at the book, it'll talk about my standardized test scores, and you'll see that some of those scores, those scores were at the 90th percentile, okay, and there was actually one score at the 99th percentile. But that's not something you would ever expect from a guy from a boys' home, foster home, from a guy who didn't, excel in high school. I would not have been anyone's pick, to one day become a physician and, save lives. So, but eventually, got into medical school, and I went to school at Meharry, college there in Nashville, where I was on the dean's list, and scholarships, and eventually, I was supported through medical school with a military scholarship. So eventually, once I finished medical school there, I did my internship in the military, where I was at the rank of captain, and since that time, I served my time in the military. And then I finished that and went to the University of South Alabama there in Mobile, did some additional training. And since that time, I've been out here just working in emergency rooms all across the South, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. And I just thought about all this, and I just thought about everything I've been through, and I wanted to really share that with people, with young people, because if you look at me and you think, hey, here's a guy who's a doctor, maybe he's from some type of, privileged background, maybe his parents were doctors, and that's not the situation. I want you to know the real deal. I want you to know everything that happened. And so that's why I wrote the book, so that people can see. And I'm summarizing, but everything in here is in detail. And again, my brother's telling you exactly what's going on from prison, 1,300 years. He's telling you the truth. So this is near and dear to my heart. Our young people here in America is near and dear to my heart. I have actually been in a situation as an ER physician to have to save young boys, okay, who've been actually shot and killed from gang activity. It's nothing like looking at a young person on the table who's 17 years old who's dying in front of you, okay? And you thinking that you know what's going on, you know where it's from. And sometimes I'm in that situation sometimes, And so this is why I said, hey, we need to write this book, and we need to connect with people out there, like my friends here today who are interviewing me, Sharika. I'm very happy that they gave me this opportunity to talk
You have been watching I Survived It.
Stay tuned and be blessed.